This chicken stew is a family favorite at my house, and I think if you give it a try, it might just become a family favorite at yours too. Here's how I make it. I'm going to start out with some butter. This is real butter. It's unsalted butter. It doesn't really matter if it's salted or not. Margarine would work too, but butter just makes it a lot better. And I'm going to use half a stick of butter. That's 4 tablespoons. You can use oil instead too. It's just going to be a less rich flavor in the end, but it would still work too. But I like to use butter. While that butter is heating up, I'm going to peel some carrots. These are just grocery store carrots, and the skins need to come off of these. And I'm going to cut these carrots up so I end up with about a 1/2 inch size pieces. I'm going to cut them lengthwise first, and then turn them sideways and cut them crosswise. And as you can see, these pieces are about a 1/2 inch. Doesn't have to be exact. Next up is an onion. This is just a yellow onion. And I'm just going to cut the ends off and give that a rough dice and put those in the bowl along with the carrots. Next is broccoli. These are broccoli crowns. Sometimes I can find the broccoli that has the long stems on there, which I do like, but these don't have it. But you can eat the stems too. You just have to peel the outermost layer of the skin off with a vegetable peeler, and then you can cube those up just like a carrot. But these crowns will work. I am going to salvage some of these stems down here and peel them and go ahead and dice them up, and I'll end up putting those in with the carrots. The stems basically have the same flavor as the florets, but they just have the texture of a carrot. They're good. But I'm just going to go ahead and dissect these broccoli crowns here into kind of medium-sized chunks with a little bit of the stalk attached. I kind of like the texture difference between the tops of the broccoli that gets really soft easily, and then a little bit lower down on the stalk there you get a little bit of a firmer texture. I kind of like that combo. And as you can see, I kind of cut these broccoli stalks to be about the same size as the carrots. This is the chicken I'm using today. These are chicken breast tenderloins, and they were pretty good for this. I like these because they defrost quickly and easily, and they cook quickly and easily also, just because they're smaller pieces. Obviously, you can use whatever chicken meat you have on hand. Some boneless, skinless chicken thighs would be good also. Or just, full-size chicken breasts. If you're using full-size chicken breasts, I would probably cut them up a little bit to be similar size as to what I have here. And I'm just going to stick a paper towel underneath the chicken meat there for just a minute or two, just to absorb any of the water that's kind of leaking out of the chicken from the defrosting. And it looks like the butter's nice and hot, so I'm going to go ahead and get that chicken put in there and get that sauteing. I have the heat on medium-high heat. And what I want to get is some browning on the outside of these chicken pieces. And usually right after I lay the cold meat in the pan, I crank the burner up all the way to high just for the first couple of minutes after that to really help the pan get back up to temperature, because you drop that cold chicken in the pan, that really sends your pan temperature down. And once they get sizzling, then I'll go ahead and turn that burner down a little bit, back down to like medium high. And after about 5 minutes or so, I've got some browning happening on that first side. You can see that in the pan there. And I'll give them a flip. I'm not trying to cook the chicken until it's all the way done here. I'm just trying to get some browning on the outside of the chicken and get some fond built up in that pan. Fond is flavor. And I've found that I do get better browning like this when using butter rather than oil. And this butter is not just for sauteing this chicken. This is part of the recipe. This is going to stay in the stew. You'll see in a minute. But after about 5 more minutes, they've got some good browning on both sides. I'm going to get those chicken pieces out of the pan and onto a plate, and just cover those up with some foil just to keep them warm while we move on to the next step. As you can see, we've got a lot of nice fond going on in the pan, and in go the carrots and onions and broccoli chunks. Now I'm going to add some seasoning. This is Badia Complete Seasoning. I use this a lot. It's kind of a blend. It's got all sorts of things: garlic, shallot, basil, oregano, peppercorns. It's all on the picture there. But I haven't really found anything that this seasoning is not good on, and it goes really good with chicken in my opinion. And this is the only seasoning I'm going to be adding to this dish. I'm not going to add any salt because I'm going to be adding chicken broth here, and this stuff is very salty. So no additional salt is needed. This is going to give us plenty. I like this powdered broth in a jar. I think it's just much easier to use than those little foil wrapped cubes. I can't stand those things. And the liquid broth you buy from the store just doesn't seem to have much flavor in my experience. But I've got 3 cups of hot water here. I heated in the microwave, just hot, not boiling. And I'm going to add 3 heaping teaspoons of the chicken bouillon to that and give it a mix. So after these vegetables have had a chance to saute for a few minutes and are kind of starting to soften a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit of flour. I never measure this. I'm guessing what I'm adding here is probably about a 1/4 cup, but you don't need to measure it, and I'll explain why here in a second. But I'm just going to mix that flour in with the butter, and that butter is going to bind with the flour and turn into a roux. And when the vegetables are looking dry and you don't see any more fat or oil or butter in the pan, then you know you've got enough flour in there. But just as an example, let's say you accidentally added too much flour like I'm doing here. All you need to do is just add a little bit more oil that'll bind with that flour, and you'll be good to go. And I like to let that flour cook in the pan just like that for just a couple of minutes, just to cook a little bit. Then I'm going to add that chicken broth in. And I just add the chicken broth a little bit at a time until I get to the consistency that I want. You can always add more liquid, but it's much more difficult to add flour if you get it too runny. And that's all 3 cups of the chicken broth right there. That consistency is looking pretty good to me. It will thicken up a little bit more once we add the meat and the other vegetables in, so I'll probably end up adding some water a little bit later. And now in goes the chicken, and don't forget to dump all those juices that were there on the plate. That's good flavor there. I'm going to get the chicken kind of spread around the pan, and then I'm going to put the broccoli in on top of the chicken. Not necessarily submerged in the gravy, but just kind of sitting on top. I like my broccoli pretty al dente. In my opinion, it doesn't taste very good when it gets overcooked and soggy, so I don't really want to stick it down in the gravy quite yet. I want to get that chicken finished cooking first. So I've still got the burner on medium heat. I'm going to put the lid on and let everything come back up to temperature. Let that chicken finish cooking and let those broccoli florets steam a little bit sitting on top there. And while that's happening, I'm going to get some dinner rolls ready. These are some of those King's Hawaiian rolls. Looks like those are the savory butter flavor. Baguette is usually my preferred crusty bread to have with this dinner, but I think we didn't have any in the house on this evening. And I'm going to pop those in the oven at like 350 for, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes, just to like get warmed up and kind of crispified on the outside. So it's been about 7 to 10 minutes, and that broccoli's looking pretty good. This is looking a little bit thicker than I would like, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. Just kind of stewify that up a little bit, make plenty of gravy. There we go. That's looking a lot better. The nice thing about broccoli is those crowns just really soak up that gravy, and it's a perfect thing for sopping up that stew off of your plate. If you're not a fan of broccoli, alternative would be frozen peas. Those are excellent in this as well. Otherwise, green beans, I've had both of those many times. Those are excellent too. And once the vegetables are tender to your liking, then it's ready. Time to serve it up. So just to sum it up, we've got chicken tenderloin, carrots, onions, broccoli, and that delicious sauce that just makes for a real great hearty meal on a winter's night. And a little dinner roll on the side or a salad is a perfect addition. But that's my recipe for chicken stew with broccoli. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. See you on the next one.